Hello, Tim here. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to make some wooden tools to go in this little wooden toolbox that I demonstrated on a previous episode. What I'm excited about is that making these little tools, they're designed sort of like the real thing, only they can't be as thin or as delicate or as sharp or anything like that. But I still like the challenge for me is one, to make things look exactly like an original tool, like a model, and all perfect scale. And that was the challenge for me. It might be a challenge for you too, to how do you make something that looks kind of cool, but is safe and it's fun to play with and it looks like what it's intended to look like. So what I've done is I've sketched out 5 different tools, and all the research I've done, there's seem to be 4, 5, 6 tools that come to the surface as far as very common for little wooden toolboxes. So what I've done is I made templates, and I sketched out a saw, a tri-square, a hammer, and a screwdriver of sorts, and then a little wrench. With these templates here, I had them digitized and made printable copy. This one's the saw, and it all fits on a 8.5 by 11 sheet, so you can download this and print it. You're free to cut them, you just cut them out, and you can glue them on with on your wood with spray adhesive. Stick them on there, and then you got a pattern right on the wood itself. So then you can cut them out. Just go to the link below and you'll have that. And as a bonus, I have the end pattern of the toy toolbox, and that shows exact size. And then you can make your sides any length you want. So if you want to follow along, these are the exact same size as what's on the template. The way we're going to make these things is using the same lumber I used for this, which is 3/8 of an inch thick birch. But in addition to some of that, I'm going to add a 1/4 inch cherry. And that's something you'll have to find a way to provide that for yourself. I'm repurposing some old trim. Actually, both these pieces is old. You see some finish from an old piece of furniture. So I actually resawed this on the saw, and I thickness planed it. If you're fortunate enough to have a thickness planer, that'll be a big help to you. So having these 2 dimensions is what I'm building my tool set from. So the birch and then the cherry will accent it. In preparation, I got some of these already cut out, rough cut out. I saved the line, and then I glued on the cherry on the outside like this here. The hammer, same thing. And one thing you got to keep in mind too is that the grain is all going one direction. On this here, the face, the grain's going the other direction, and that gives it strength, so that if it was just all in one direction like that, it could break on the short end with a short grain. So the grain direction is going this way, and that's why it looks like it does. So it's going to have a little bit of a light and dark look on the end when we get it all finished. And then the saw, I glued up 1/2 of the handle. The other half I had cut this down a little bit here, so I have a reference point to glue on the other side. Now these will all be sanded at the same time, so once this is all glued up like this, then I'll drill out the inside here and cut that out and finish this and cut the saw teeth and so forth. So this here is going to be glued on after I do some cutting out and shaping of the teeth, because I can lay it flat down on the saw and cut in. Tri-square is probably the simplest tool. Again, the grain and this piece is going up and down like here, and then the cherry is going horizontal like that. And actually, this is probably the only tool that would actually work as a real tool the way it's intended, so that you could mark your, you could use it as a tri-square actually. This one's all done, and if you choose to add numbers to it. You could wood burn them in or carve little numbers. I chose not to do that. It's just simple enough. And you could put dowel pins in there and highlight it and make it a little more fancy. But it seems like the basic tool, this is all it's meant to do. So it's just, it's done in itself. It just needs to be final sanded and then finished. Now on some of these, like the screwdriver here, I'm going to be taking it to some other equipment. This could all be done with chisels and whittling knife and all that, but I'm going to speed up the process with some edge sander and bandsaw. I'm just going to jump to some of those, and then we'll come back and do the final sanding and finish it up. So a couple of things I'm going to point out when we get to this point here on how to cut the saw handle part out and how to use this template for that purpose. Some of this stuff you could take, and if you needed that line there, you can just do whatever you want. But if you needed that line, you could cut the handle part off and then you could trace that. Otherwise, just freehand, it doesn't really matter too much, just so that both of these are the same. And I cut these out both at the same time. So starting with the saw handle here on this back side, and I have my reference points where the handle stops. This is just the sketch part. Again, your template that I have on that's better than this here, it might be just easiest to glue it on there. Now I'm going to draw this. These teeth will probably in the end have to be rounded over a little bit more. Won't worry about that right now. This will all be cut out later, but we have the blade. So we're going to cut the teeth and the saw blade out. So that's that. Let's do the wrench. So that's the wrench, and the hammer. It's going to be 7/8 of an inch thick there. One tip I'd say on making this here is to go to an exact 90-degree corner and have that be your end. So you got it 90 degrees there, and then just draw this. Then we cut pieces of cherry out and lay them across like that and glue them up and do the final shaping once it's built up. And I always build it up oversized because you can always cut it down. It's harder to add to it. So I'm going to do this, and again I might modify it as I go. I don't always know how I'm going to finish things up. So I'm going to just rough this out, and a lot of this is just going to be shaped by eye. And again, these templates are only as a guide. They're not to be totally followed. You know, at your discretion. It's always that way. So let's go to the bandsaw. Okay, what I'm about to do right now that I got this roughed out, is there's a little step in between here that I have to, I'll just talk about it here, but I have to show you what I'm talking about with the template. So I have two pieces. I'm going to do one here and one here. This is all rough cut, and then what I've done, and you can see the holes here, I've pinned those two through that hole there, I pinned these two together. I've made a sandwich, just two of them together. And the reason I'm doing that, and I cut this out rough cut, is that this interior part here has to be pre-sanded, pre-shaped, because it's too hard to do it once it's glued onto the saw like this here. Just to recap, these two are put on top of each other and then cut out, and then this has to be sanded. This part here all has to be done so that they're equal. And these are equal, as you can see. So now we'll just glue this on. We'll type on glue. Now just kind of make sure it lines up. These do tend to shift when you put the clamp on it, but just kind of make sure we're good. We're good there, we're good there. Okay, that'll work for now. While the saw handle is drying up, I'm going to mention a brief word about these sanding drums. These are pretty useful. I've got one that's even smaller than this, down to about a ½ inch. These are all 1/4 inch shank, and you can put them in a drill press, and oftentimes I use them in my drill. So in this particular case, I'm going to use them on this screwdriver here. So in my vise here, I'm just going to hold that there. Okay, that's pretty good. I'm going to now do the final sanding and final shaping. This will be rounded just a little bit, and then that'll be brought to more of a point, but not real pointy. All right, let's recap what we've done so far. So this is probably the most complex one, and I've got both sides of the handle glued up. I got a little bit of glue. It's not quite dry yet, but so I'll take a knife and just get that out of there. It doesn't matter if it dries, you can cut it out later too. So we'll take that, get that all cleaned up. So now this is what it looks like. We're a little bit oversized here, and all this is going to be done with the sander. And I used a 5/8 inch drill bit and drilled through the handle here. And so we're going to just connect those dots, those two holes, with a saber saw, and then sand everything up. So from this point forward, it's kind of all about sanding and rounding things up. So we got them all roughed out. You can see I've tapered this a little bit, and it's not going to be much smaller than this, but I'm going to just smooth it up. And to clean up, I've used a knife here. Just remind yourself that this is it's just toys, and they're handmade, so they're going to have a variation. Hammer, same thing. I'm going to kind of make it a little bit of an octagonal handle, and got to clean up the handle up to the hammer head. So what I have here is a band sander. This is a pretty useful tool for just bench top sanding. I should be used to wearing a mask now after a 1.5 years of having to wear it all the time at work, but I forget when I'm at home. So anyway, okay, that's it for the sander. Now I'm going to cut this here, and the rest of it's all hand sanding. Okay, I'm going to use a saber saw here. Still makes a little bit of dust, but not as much as the sander. And I'm just going to cut this, the two sections of line here to complete the hole. There we have it. Okay, we're all done roughing out and all the important heavy part of the sanding and cutting. All the finished sanding and the detail work we're going to cover next time, and we'll talk about child safe or food safe finishes. A couple of options of finishes that we'll put on here, but we got to do some prep work before that. So the final sanding and the finishing we'll cover next time. So this is the saw. They got the template done. Here's the screwdriver, and the rest of this is all going to be hand sanded. So that's ready to go. I got the hammer and just a little bit of cleanup and final sanding, and the tri-square, which needs to be a little more sanded up, and then the crescent wrench, or the wrench, and we'll finish that up next time. So there it is, all fits in the toolbox. Well, that's it for this time. Thanks for watching, and next time we'll cover the finishing up of this process. And I hope my grandson enjoys this. He doesn't know he's getting it yet. He probably won't know for a couple of years. He's just newborn. Please refer to the links below and have fun with it. So thanks for watching. Give it a thumbs up, and we'll see you next time. He probably won't know for a couple of years. He's just newborn. I should have it done by then. So,
So funny.
You said this fits on here.
Unplugged it.
Oh.